Yahoo. Vivek Ramaswamy dragged. Okay, more slang. After wild rant on how American workers suck. How's that on the screen? No, that's too big. I need to be. There we go. The question of the day will return shortly. You remember what it is. You can answer it at any time. You can tell others if they show up. What are the questions of the day? Vivek Ramaswamy thinks tech companies are choosing foreign-born workers over American ones because our culture is too chill, too mediocre, and doesn't uplift dorks like him enough. This is Yahoo News? I did not know. I haven't read this. All right. Well, that's obviously, if those are his claims, that's not what's happening. And it's a perfectly incorrect read of a self-serving, race-conscious Indian person. Remember, once again, he went to Italy and he told his children in the news that Rome was not something that white people, the Roman Empire was not something that white people created. It was multiracial. So never forget that. The former Republican presidential candidate and upcoming Department of Government Efficiency co-lead offered his 2 cents on the discussion surrounding the future of American-born labor in Silicon Valley. Quote, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Stop, full stop. That's not what happens in America. So I've got his tweet, and I don't know how much of this they're going to share. That's kind of at the center of it. If that is, and I surmise it is, although it's I don't see it just skimming it, but maybe it is, or from another one. But full stop. That's not what happens in America. Everyone celebrates the valedictorian. Everybody thinks highly of the valedictorian. Everyone thinks highly of those who are expert at mathematics. Everyone does. So what we have here right off the bat is a self-serving pretext for an objective that we kind of already know. Where he's going, but we'll see how this develops. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World. What the hell's that? Or Zach and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell. Or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters. This guy watched a lot of TV. To be but you know what I kind of wonder? I kind of wonder if he had some help. Wonder if he had some help. Will not produce the best engineers, Ramaswamy wrote on X. So then we've got to get the best engineers from the country that produces the best engineers, India. And that's where the record skips. Because the most brilliant human construction on the planet happens in India, right? I remember when they were building the king in the king prince. What is he called? And he wanted the best engineers in the world. I remember reading these articles on this, to build those islands out into the ocean and to build those skyscrapers and where did he go? Where did he go? America and Europe to get them. And they did all of these names of white people, lead engineers, the lead engineer firms. I mean, hell, China for the Olympics before last, they built that giant basket. They went out, and of course, check all this out for yourself. And finally, after interviewing a lot of different firms, the German firm that won was the one that included a Chinese guy on the staff. Which is not to say that there aren't very talented Indian people, because there are. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over late. No, it's the conformity of the communal activity. And I can speak personally from all of the good Indian people, some bad, some good, that I knew growing up. That's the work that we have cut out for us. Rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. He concluded. Ramaswamy, who is an Indian American, was immediately lambasted by the left and the right for his pitiful, presumptuous take. Wow, this author is really going after him. Good. There's nothing wrong with American workers or American culture. Former Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley replied. Oh boy, she fell hard, didn't she? So she's really trying to suck up. She came out hard as, I was brown in a white world. Oh, it's the anti-whiteism with you too? You were brown in a white world? And then we saw the pictures of her and she couldn't have been a lighter brown. But she was brown in a white world. It was so hard on her. All you have to do is look at the border and see how many want what we have. We should be investing and prioritizing in Americans, not foreign workers. Vivek, you've accomplished a lot, but it's okay to just say you don't understand American culture. One conservative replied, going on to remind him how racist much of the MAGA base is. How do you like that? These are your white cucks on the right. These are the white cucks on the right. Quote, Neil Armstrong, greater than any Indian to ever live and product of American culture, product of Western kind, chose the less academic Purdue over MIT because he liked the football team, close quote. Okay. We know you are going back, another MAGA supporter replied. I agree with that one. Ivy Leaguer trying to sell math Olympiad over prom queen to the MAGA base amid intense educational polarization is what. Oh my God, said Harvard professor Matt Black. Is this another white cuck? This is going to be the white cuck take. It's all going to be abstractions. That's all it ever is with the white cucks. When white people are being victimized. When white people are victimized, they turn it into an abstraction. When Jews are victimized, it's all about the people of Judaism, whether they practice Judaism or not. If blacks are victimized, they'll talk about black people being victimized. It's all about race then. But if white females are being victimized, then it's women being victimized. If white males are being victimized, it's a fucking abstraction. Nobody knows who's getting hurt here. Nobody knows who the target is. Vivek trashing sports achievement, a culture that celebrates the jock over the valedictorian, and that doesn't happen, is surely going to go down well with his audience. Everyone loves a Yale guy talking about why American culture sucks. That's current affairs editor Robinson. Ramaswamy's views, which seem to be in misalignment with the majority of MAGA, may potentially put his power as Doge co-lead in jeopardy. Fire his ass. Absolutely fire him. It remains to be seen how President-elect Donald Trump will respond to these talking points, if at all. So ultimately what's happening is mainly Ramaswamy, and there are other Indians on X that are, you're finally seeing what I told you so many years ago. And those who were with me before streaming on the internet, making videos on the internet, so many years ago, you're finally seeing how viciously anti-white they can be. I mean, just like wildly crazy anti-white some Indians can be. And apparently it's a decent amount. They're all over X and they're like, your people are scum. You don't work hard. You just want to sit on your egg, on and on and on. On the basis of race, that's what they're talking about. They're mentioning race, the white race. So ultimately what's happening is you've had in the United States, and it's happening across the West, the cream of the crop in India being imported by the conservatives, the white cucks, the left side of the artificial spectrum. They import the Hispanics and the blacks and the Arabs, but the cucks, the white cucks, they import the Indians. And then they tell you, this is going to be so great for you. Folks, I gave speeches on this 20 years ago. 20 years. The thing I'm going to read out of Born Guilty was when I was a child. So then they come to you and they tell you, this is going to be so great for you and this country because we're going to bring in these massively talented people and they're just going to make everything better, except it's a zero-sum game. The jobs at the top are not expanded. The number is not expanded. The white people in those jobs are just white erased. So this is what I was talking about. And I've given, in fact, we had a clip made of me the other day, and big kudos to whoever made that clip. I don't know who specifically made it, but where I'm talking about this, where the anti-whites on the left, hey, they're going to replace you. They're going to white erase you. Sorry. They're going to white erase you with DEI or inclusive. What was the term? Inclusive growth. And any new terms they come up with. And then on the cuck side, they're going to say, oh, you're being white erased with meritocracy, except it's not really meritocracy, is it? Because these people, they come in. And what is it that the owners of the businesses and the shareholders, what are they getting out of them? Slave labor. It's the same slave labor that you get out of the Hispanics that are now putting your roofs on, building your homes, and on and on. It's the same sort of slave. They have to work for less. They're willing to work for less. And then we, the taxpayers, pick up everything else for them. The employer knows, oh, I'll just pay them this bare minimum that but then the taxpayer is going to pay for their food benefits, for their housing benefits. The taxpayer is going to be paying for their children's education, their education. The taxpayers are also going to be paying for the law enforcement to maintain the civility in their neighborhoods. The taxpayer, the lion's share of which is held by the white male, the white family, is going to be paying for the roads that they use and all of the other utilities. And the business owner gets to pay that pittance to them. Same thing, and it achieves this anti-white objective. Directly, indirectly, if white people are standing up and saying, and that's kind of giving you a hint about where we're going with this, that we don't mean ill to any other group of people. We're not going to be victimized anymore. White men are drawing a line in the sand. We and our families are not going to be victimized anymore. We are not going to stand as selfish individualists and continue to get railroaded and run over by anti-whiteism and other communal groups of people. We're going to stand together and say enough is enough. You're going to staff the entire corporation, the entire hierarchy with Indians, whether they're American born or brought over from India, and we'll shut down the corporation by the means that the white race still has at our disposal. If we act in unity, if we don't do that with the moral matrix of white well-being, we're finished. We're finished. I told you, This is the new, I've been writing about it for a long time. I've been giving speeches about it for a long time. This is your new managerial class. This is your new leadership class. And you're seeing them on both sides. What did I say over a year ago? I said on a stream over a year ago, on a Sunday stream, I said, you're going to end up with Indians on both sides of the aisle arguing it out, and white people get to decide which Indians are their Indians. Which Indians are theirs. In a country that we create, not just knock off this, we created it, and now somebody else can have it and run it. And no, it is made every moment of every living second as a white person breathes America into existence with our instincts. It doesn't exist otherwise. A place could still be called America. It can still be called the United States. It won't be that anymore if we're not the super majority. So let's continue. So what they're doing is Elon Musk is coming in, and he wants to, these tech bros, they're faced with a problem. The problem is that the magnificent talent of the white man has been undermined. We have been, just like Haktua girl, Haley Welsh, we've been rug pulled. And how has it happened? It's happened with anti-whiteism. A perfect example is yours truly and many of the white men in this audience. I am not going to say exactly, but I have a sizable IQ. Why am I not in a 6 or even 7 figure with perquisites job? Why is my intelligence not unleashed for some corporation, some rich individual? Why not? Why? What happened? Anti-whiteism happened. Everywhere I have gone over the course of my life trying to get ahead, I have faced the bulwark of anti-whiteism. I have faced this moral imperative, this anti-white moral imperative, which is the social morality of the West. This is a story for every white man, every single one who doesn't have one of these like micro socialistic networks, like the good old boys from this fraternity or that fraternity that's left at places like Yale or Harvard, where they can still hook each other up in the background, not on the basis of race, but on the basis of, you know, they went through the hazing screwing the same goats on the same day. And so now they're going to remember that time. Oh, I remember that time. How drunk were you? I was sober when I did them. So for us, everywhere we go, there isn't just, it isn't this one-dimensional or two-dimensional ineptitude of somebody is at the top and this somebody at the top or this little group at the top is saying, oh, no, they can't come in. It's from every angle because it is the social morality of the West. So it's from our peers. It's from our subordinates. It's from our superiors. Everywhere we go, there are roadblocks for white males. Everywhere we go. And now I'm just talking about the roadblocks. I'm not getting into the other aspects even yet. Just talking about the roadblock. There are no opportunities there are no organizations. I remember I was in a job that I had several lunches with some people with power and pretty significant positions. And every single time we had these lunches, I greatly impressed these powerful people. Every time they were like, wow, I was figuring things out for them and even personal things for them. And one day conversation, and this is just one of many anecdotes that every white guy can tell. They're like, well, why don't you just go get some money from like this lodge Or why don't you go to one of these fairs and they have people giving money out so that you can get into a good school here or get connections there. And I told them, there are none for white males. There is no group that's saying we'll give to white males. All these groups, in fact, that first of all, you have a slew of organizations that specifically designate money, much of it raised from white people in the country, to send girls to university. Universities are full of females now, to send everything else under the sun. Asian people, very, Far East Asia, they absolutely hook each other up, pool the money together, send them off to the best schools. And then you had these other organizations that acted like they were indifferent to, at least superficially, to race or to sex or whatever. But then you get right into it and you find out, oh, they've said that they're going to give out this many to blacks and this many to females and this many. No category for white male. No category for white male. So it's everywhere. It's in the ether. This is the battle that has to be fought. The other problem, of course, and this goes much deeper, is that anti-whiteism, the anti-white narrative, teaches white males that they're losers, that we're from an evil people, that we deserve to be walked on, that we deserve to be exploited, that we don't deserve to have these jobs, the high paying, the best jobs, we don't deserve to be able to get into a corporation and fight our way up through the ranks. We don't deserve any of that because we're from an evil people, because white males have always stolen and thieved. And then we see, and I've talked about this for years too, the ramification of young white males watching older white males get shafted. Young white males watching older white males do all the training, do all the education, pay their dues for year after year after year. Then there's no promotion for them. Then the woman shoots by. Then the Indian shoots by that did nothing. What is the consequence for those younger white males? It's Brobdingnagian. It's Olympus Mons. They learn that no matter how hard they work, they're not going to get the pay. They're not going to get the great job. They're not going to get, that's what they learn. That's something that can't be easily unlearned. That's what anti-whiteism has done to the white male. I could go on, literally, no joke, for an hour straight about the injury to white males and how it rug pulls us, how it undermines our drive to excel, to do great. Not the least of which is something I mentioned a little bit earlier. Pouring forth from people like Peterson, who tell you, your people don't matter. Tell the white race that. Your people don't matter. You can't have pride in your people. Everyone derived from a demolished people is radically diminished thereby. People don't step forth into the world out of a void. They step out of their family lineage and the accomplishments of their greater family, their people. That's where they come from. And that drive inside of them, that drive that they feel, is to emulate what their people have done, which means to not just imitate, but take it a step further in success. Do a little bit better than their forefathers did. White males today should be wanting, in all seriousness, should be wanting, since we've built what we believe is the greatest civilization, Western civilization, and so many others believe is the greatest civilization, they keep pouring in, don't they? Instead of just imitating us back home, they keep pouring in. We should be wanting to build on the shoulders of those ancestors in space, in greater achievements terrestrially here on Earth. We're not. None of us are. There's no drive because none of us want to stand on the shoulders of those thieving, maniacal, evil, exploiting white males of our ancestry. So, many consequences in Western civilization. When you take the engine of the West, which is the white male, you take that engine and you pour sand into the petrol tank. You undermine it in every conceivable way. You undermine it morally. You undermine it psychically. You undermine it spiritually. And then, even on top of that, you prop up massive roadblocks. We don't want white males. We want females. We don't want white males. We want Indians. We don't want white males. We want blacks. We don't want everywhere we go in our lives. And then America, the rest of the Western countries say, where are the people to do these jobs anymore? Where are they? Well, it doesn't happen like this. It's not a light switch. That's not how the dynamical nature, complex nature of civilization and society functions. It's a dimmer switch. Things are slowly getting dimmer and darker. Actually, that's kind of an appropriate metaphor, isn't it? Things are slowly getting dimmer and darker in all of the Western countries. What do they do? What do they do? I mean, Musk and Andreessen and Ramaswamy, and what do they do now? The engine of ingenuity, of genius, of courage, everything that enabled the white race to conquer everything that sought to conquer us, other tribes of man, wild animals, disease, the climate, everything that sought to conquer us, we conquered. But it's disappearing. Fewer and fewer white men are able to dodge enough of the poison of anti-whiteism and or have benefits of the little fraternity and the little micro-socialism here or there, or maybe homeschooling by parents who won't even use any of the modern homeschooling materials because they have secreted their children away from the pollution that is the world. Fewer and fewer white powerhouses. What do they do now? These countries are still going to want to maintain their status relative to others like China, and that's really what the tech bros, big and little tech, are all about. We got to be able to take on China. We got to be able to take on Russia. What do they do? Next best. Next best. Got a Band-Aid for you right here. Got a blowout patch for you here. Bleeding pretty bad there, aren't you, America? Kind of a big hole in your abdomen. A little bit of your intestines are spilling out. But we got a Band-Aid. We're going to put that Band-Aid. That Band-Aid is called India. We're going to put this Band-Aid right over top of it. Everything's going to be fine. What do they call it in the UK? A plaster? We're going to put a plaster on it. Everything's going to be fine. We just got to take care of the right here and now. That's what matters. Just the right here and now. So we want to go out and find and import these people who will do these jobs for us. They'll do it for cheaper. They'll do it for fewer benefits, which means that the owners get to keep more and more and positions them to be more and more competitive with other businesses out there. As long as you allow that door to be open, business owners are going to do what they've got to do. They're going to do what they got to do to compete. This is what they're resorting to. And it makes perfect moral sense because we live under the oppressive anti-white narrative. The social morality of the day is that no concern can be given to the welfare of white people as white people. That, my friends, is immoral. But the welfare of non-white people and concerns for them as non-white, that is moral. So you have the left applauds white erasing more of America, bringing more non-white people in. The left, the people on the left side of the spectrum, anti-whites, they're going to applaud that. The right, white cucks, they're going to applaud it. It's moral. You're doing good by non-white people. All of these white cucks in MAGA, so many of them, not all of them are cucks, but so many of them will demand and be gleeful about, ecstatic, effusive about non-whites being on the stage, your keynote speakers. The whole audience can be this room full of like stencil wearing and glittered up like cowboy hats and low-cut tops and Daisy Duke shorts. The whole damn thing can be white, but the stage is going to be non-white. Why? The anti-white moral imperative. I said it the other day, a couple of weeks back now, a month or so now. I said, these tech businesses, their option should be this. The people of America, the white race, needs to step up and say, here's your only option. You train us. You use our tax dollars and the money that you have made by way of being able to operate in this country to train us to do those jobs. End of the conversation. You are not importing a new population because you're going to allow anti-whiteism and by way of the white noir that it inflicts on white people to destroy Western kind and then fix it with more brown and other non-white races. We're not going to allow it. This is the position we have to have. And there, as I mentioned, as I'm saying here, the only remedy to the lack or supposed lack or how severe the lack of tech workers to do these jobs in these big and little tech, their companies, the only remedy for it that will benefit us is to address this moral imperative, anti-white moral imperative in Western civilization. That is the social morality. We address that with the tools that we share in the Go Free Dialogic. Very simple, just concepts that you use when talking about these things. Incidentally, that's exactly how they operate, the concepts. And then you ignorantly use their concepts that yield their outcomes. You have to use different concepts to yield different outcomes. You have to address that moral imperative or nothing else will matter. Nothing else will work. There'll be no political revolution. There'll be none of that's possible. As long as the social morality of the West is anti-whiteism, they win, we lose. You want to fix what's happening with big tech and little tech? You've got to address this moral question. And here's the thing. This is not an issue of that is analogous to historical revisionism, where you're thinking, well, we have to re-educate millions and millions of people to get the result we're looking for. These are mere concepts that you have to learn more jargon at work, most of you. Mere concepts that if adopted and used to talk about these things, which so many in this community have, and have massive successes in their lives, all of it replicable and scalable. Spread these concepts, and this happens very quickly. Why is that, you ask? Because when you position white people to defend themselves with a moral stance, and now be careful what you might think there, because everything else that you've considered moral to this day, everything else that sort of continues to kind of crutch along sickly, like the morality of the church, right? Or the ethics of the West, or that comes to us from philosophy, whatever it is, has all been defeated by anti-whiteism. It's all subject to anti-whiteism. That's why the Go Free dialogic is designed to undermine anti-whiteism itself. White people, given a moral matrix, can change all of this in historical terms overnight. Overnight. So what are we talking about when we're talking about Indians in particular? You're talking about people who are nepotistic in a, not, of course, not all, many nepotistic. I've talked to you before. In fact, I mentioned it again the other day, that you had this situation where the Indian people that I knew, they were always talking about their getting their brothers' jobs, their cousins' jobs, their second cousins' jobs, their third cousins' jobs, people they would call related that weren't actually related. They were just related as in the greater family of their race. It was always this focus. So let me read right out of Born Guilty. For those who might be thinking, oh, maybe Jason's just saying he's been warning us about this for years. Let's see, what page is it here? See, where should I begin? The anti-whites lied when they blustered that serving the spirit of the West was an expression of hatred for non-whites. Now, it's really important just to stop right there for a moment to indicate for any of those out there who think that you need to be negative on some other race of people, that some other group of people need to be harmed for us to be healthy. That is the quintessential element of anti-whiteism that prevents white people from joining you. Do you understand that? White people can be healthy, happy, without harming any other group of people. If you are one of those white people that are saying that some non-white group out there has to suffer for you or for white people in general to be well, you are a purveyor of the anti-white narrative. You are making it manifest in the real world. If you can't follow the morality there that I followed when I was 11 fucking years old, when I realized that if I said to my teachers and the administration that if white people to be healthy means that non-white people have to get harmed, then the only way to achieve the well-being of non-white people is to achieve the ill-being of my people. If you can't do that yourself, then just understand that God gave people different talents, and this is not yours. You need to learn that you can't take a mid-wit intelligence and apply it to the multi-dimensional, dynamical nature of social interaction over time, presenting various and moving challenges to the white race and our well-being, and think that you're going to take a mid-wit approach, flatten it out to 2 dimensions, and say, well, just get rid of the beehive, then you don't have bees. Understand that's too stupid. I had submitted myself to the service of the West, and yet my friendships with non-whites hadn't changed. They knew they could never be anti-white around me, that I was unlike other whites, apologetic, deferential, self-effacing. So isn't this amazing that there I am, figured out how to defend our people's well-being, how to advance and put an end to our victimization. Successful. And I go out and I'm like, I can teach everybody this, and everybody does it. And then we have our destiny back in our hands. And how have I been treated? They knew I didn't suffer from white guilt and its crippling symptoms, that I wouldn't tolerate anti-white remarks. And I never objected to their racial tribalism, which was central to their lives. All of the non-white groups, non-white peoples that I grew up in and around and hung out with and etc., they all had this their people. They all had this view, this racial tribalism. And you know who had it, some of the strongest, I guess, lines, some of the strongest gravity for racial tribalism? Indians. In my experience. Listen to this. They talked about their people, their customs, their culture, their burgeoning influence and power. I would say Arabs, Indians and Arabs that I grew up with. It was all about their people, their customs, their burgeoning power, the injustices against their people. None of my people doing that. And for those out there, again, who are white and think you're standing up for the white race by slandering some other group of people, note the difference. The successful groups are talking about their people, how they are victimized, their burgeoning power, their strength, their networking. While white people, if they're white cucks out there, they're just selfish individualists. They're like, oh, I don't got, my people is just an agreement of folks on an opinion about a country and an experiment. That's their thinking. And then the other side of the coin of supposedly caring. So that was like indirectly caring for white people by caring about everyone, which is really just a cowardly way to say that you submit to the anti-white narrative and the anti-white moral imperative. Because you're going to refuse to talk about the victimization of white people. The other side of the coin is hate this non-white group, hate that non-white group. That non-white group's got to go away. That non-white group. This is what works, boneheads. Their customs, their culture, their burgeoning influence and power. By the way, like they would talk about, I mean, do I say it here? Let me just read in and I'll add if I have to. They talked about their ethnic networking and how it benefited their elders and would benefit them in the future in admissions, business deals, job placement, and career advancement. All my non-white friends. I didn't object to it. I saw it as natural. And I just wondered, why the hell do my people not do this? They talked about how their people were moving into this or that sector of the economy, proudly declaring their growing dominance in those sectors of the economy. When the law, does this sound like it'll be good for white people? When the lawful non-white kids talked about getting rich off the stupid public, and when the unlawfully disposed non-white kids talked about schemes to steal or sell drugs, they all excluded their own people from victimization. That was something else that I found absolutely remarkable. That's different between whites and non-whites. Is that these different groups, Indians, Arabs, but specifically it's pertinent right now for the Indians coming in. And there are many wonderful people coming in. But it was amazing how they would talk about protecting their people. Never said. You can go to, and I've gone to 1,000, like quote unquote pro-white, white concerned, white sympathetic meetings. And I'm the guy talking about protecting our people. No one else. You can go in there and hear people give speeches, endless speeches about everything else but protecting our people. And then when I complain and I say, well, what about us? When do we get to protect? Well, that will just happen at some point. What do you mean some point, sometime later? None of these non-white groups that are having massive success in our midst are saying sometime later. None of them are saying, you know what, we'll take over this particular sector of the economy after. Not one. Not one. They saw themselves as groups with group interests, identities, and enemies. They spoke of their people as though they were creeping vines in an unsuspecting forest, growing and climbing, growing and webbing, growing and crowding out the other plants, taking the light of the sun for themselves. It was revelatory, insidious, frightening. So that was me. And in this part of the story, I was at a friend of mine, Indian kid's house. I was talking about it in that point of the story.